Hello everybody, this is the off season. We finally come to the end of year 3. Not a great way to end it. That was a bad game against Tennessee, but what are you going to do? David Dixon has the single season rushing record for most yards, so there's that. And here's how things shaped up in the conference at the end of the year. Finished 11-3, 8-1 in conference play, conference champions. It was a great year despite the loss in the bowl game there. And yeah, not a bad season. See how the rest of the conference looked, and UTSA finishes at the bottom, 2-10, 1-7. So there you go. Unfortunately, some of my other footage ended up being corrupted with conference finishes, All-Americans, I believe. But we do get the bowl results here. I'm sorry about some of the things that you guys might miss, but for whatever reason I couldn't access that part of the recordings. So if you want to, as usual, see any really in-depth or look at every score individually, give that video a pause. I have left it in place for a good amount of time to pause for you guys there. But the Rose Bowl was Ohio State against Navy. Navy made it to the Rose Bowl. Notre Dame, Miami, I tell you what, that's a classic right there. That's a classic matchup in the Sugar Bowl. And Alabama beats TCU easily in the Orange Bowl. Alright, we'll get to the national championship here. And Georgia Tech, undefeated over Stanford. How a 10-win team got into the national championship, you might be wondering. But there are a lot of teams like that at the top. I mean, Georgia Tech was far and away the best team, I think, in this particular season. And here we go with the season stats. Josh Silva, 13 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. I know a lot of people want somebody else at quarterback. I really do, and I'm really looking at my options for season 4. David Dixon, 15 touchdowns. Silva did pass for 2,100 yards and ran for over 1,000. 10 rushing touchdowns, 13 passing. So he did a good job, but 9 fumbles by Silva and 21 interceptions. Now, not all of those fumbles were necessarily lost, but still, can't be happening. Connor Martin led 37 receptions, but 4 receivers who had 30 plus. Not too bad. We're not a pass-first team, so all things considered, this isn't terribly bad. But Connor Martin does return. Kevin Privet, Philip Dickens, Brandon Ellison, all these guys are coming back next year. I think really we lost Kirk Spellman really as kind of the big loss for the team. So Caleb Taylor, of course, 76 tackles, 19 for loss, 1 sack. Marcus Massey always getting in on those tackling actions as well. But here you see Laurie Alston, Anderson Miller, Rob Mahan all with 10 plus TFLs. Of course, the sacks were pretty great. Miller came off the edge there for 8, Mahan 4. John Jordan, give him a round of applause. I really like this guy. But then I see the guys who got their 1 sacks. Terry Morris, one of our recruits, got a few plays in this season. And Travis Gonzalez tied the school record for interceptions in a season with 5. Man, 43 tackles, 5 interceptions, 6 pass deflections. Justin Weddle, the freshman, had a decent year. He got burned a couple times, but he's going to be our number 1 cornerback going forward. And Anthony White, he was a junior college recruit, so we only got him for a couple seasons. But he did a great job at kicker, so once again, 17 of 20 was a great season. I don't show too many punts because not a lot happens usually on them, but here you can see the stats there in the kick return game. Donald Simmons did a great job. Redshirt freshman cornerback who basically didn't get much time playing cornerback because he's so low on the depth chart. And here, players leaving. Goodbye, Anthony White. We will miss you as a kicker. See his career totals, 32 of 38. It's 84%. Had a 53, never missed an extra point. Great job. Malik Johnson basically started 3 years. a great career for him as well. 2 interceptions, forced fumble here. Kirk Spellman didn't really see the bulk of playing time until this season. We had a lot better receivers ahead of him, but there's his career stats. Rob Mahan, I called him Hunter Mahan at one point because I got him confused with the golfer of the same name. But 5 career sacks, 15 tackles for a loss. Eli Anderson, if only they tracked pancake blocks correctly in this game. They don't correctly track those stats in the game, so you don't really ever get anything good for your offensive lineman unless you're simulating. But here's Andrew Everett. He didn't really get all that much playing time. He was one of those guys who just never really rated that high. He didn't play that well, so he didn't get much playing time. Galen Evans, 3 sacks in his career, 17 total tackles. Caleb Taylor, 219 career tackles, 52 for a loss, 5 sacks, 1 interception, 5 pass deflections, a forced fumble. All in a glorious career. We will miss you, Caleb. I love you. Not in that way, but I love you. Ricky Seegers, the punter. We're losing both our punter and kicker. And I recruited a kicker and a punter this year, even though you can really just use one for both. I just do it anyway for depth purposes. DJ Simon, another linebacker. Almost, we're losing a lot of linebackers. Mike Lennox really never played. He was another guy who just wasn't rated that high. Didn't really show too much potential. He had 1 career tackle. Larry Alston. Man, I can't believe we're losing these guys. Sucks. 4 interceptions, 6 sacks, 38 tackles for loss, 109 career tackles. We will miss you, Larry. You were fantastic. Connor Mewborn, very good tackle actually. He was a very good blocker. You don't hear the offensive linemen get called out a lot because they, with stats and things, they're not tracked as much, and it's harder to recognize them getting in on the action because they're just blocking most of the time. Anderson Miller didn't really play up until this season. 8 sacks, though he led the team. And Travis Gonzalez, again, another guy who didn't really get much playing time until this year, although he's only 2 years of his career because he was coming out of junior college as a junior. So there you go. Those are the guys that are leaving. Mostly defensive players. We're losing a lot of defense, and it sucks because our defense was rather solid this year. We didn't have anybody go in the draft, which I'm a bit surprised about. I thought we would have maybe like a Caleb Taylor go in the 7th round or something, but that didn't happen, unfortunately, here. So you can take a look at the draft results here. I highlighted most of the big time teams, and the teams that will have draft guys. Generally, you won't see the Bowling Greens of the world have too many draft guys, or you won't even recognize the names. So, but look at Florida, a whole ton of guys coming out there. Florida State, not a lot actually, but Jameis Winston does go in the 5th round. I honestly thought the game would put him in a higher round, but I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I know they base it on like the overall rating mostly, but I'm not exactly sure how they put one player over another in this sense. I do think it's a bit arbitrary how they decide what round these guys go in, but whatever. It is what it is. If I was doing a Madden thing, I could certainly import the draft class, and then we could see where they really go, what round they would really go in that game, but I don't. So there you go. Missouri, Green Beckham goes 2nd round. Good receiver. David Santos, Jonathan Rose, and Zach Stirrup go for Nebraska. Not too surprising. They didn't really have any offensive players go, but look at all the guys for Notre Dame. Good grief. Good grief. Ohio State. No real huge names coming out there, but again, you can kind of take a look at the names here, see if there's any guys that you recognize. Marcus Mariota goes in the first round. Good draft for Oregon, but they lose a lot of players. So I wonder how the team's been recruiting. I'd like to take a look at Oregon and see like how their team's been building up to replace a lot of those guys. Stanford, a whole crap load of players. Crazy. Only player from that Tennessee team that we played was that Randolph guy. They didn't have anybody else go in the draft. But Texas A&M, Manziel goes in the first round. Of course, this didn't take into account that he would leave early. The game doesn't... I don't know if I've seen anybody leave early for the draft in this game. I'm not sure if they have that or if it only occurs rarely. I don't remember. But it seems everybody stays to the senior year. And the only way you could really correct that is if before you start the Dynasty, you edited Johnny's class to be a senior, so he would automatically come out after the first season, like real life. So yeah, there you go. We do have one guy coming in on a transfer. It's Phil Billings out of Navy, a tight end. And he's just a freshman, so he'll have to sit out a year, because that's the rule of transfers. But with Connor Martin leaving, that means we probably won't even have to recruit another tight end, because we have Adrian Bush in behind him. Do we have somebody else at tight end? I don't remember. But look at our recruiting ranking. 114th. It hasn't... This year was not like the last couple years in recruiting. I feel I did a lot better job in years 1 and 2 with recruiting, and this season I didn't feel that I was getting the players I really wanted. The players I really wanted kept going elsewhere or were a little bit out of reach. I'm going to try in year 4 to be a little more aggressive and go for some bigger name players. But look at Miami of Ohio is 8th in the country in recruiting class. What? What? So I added a couple guys to the board here at the end of the season to try and beef up our recruiting class a little bit. Jeremy Fitzpatrick, some people look too much at the overall rating. I don't agree. The overall is not the end-all be-all. It does say a bit about the player, but you have to look in-depth at their ratings a little bit more to see why they're that overall. And I'll explain that in a little bit because we'll see something that's a good example of why overall does not mean everything. Because it also takes into account their awareness rating and things like that. But again, Nick Carroll, John Mills, Mike Robertson, all coming on. I just added Nick Carroll and John Mills to the board, and they were all good to go. Eric Bracken goes to Duke, Nick Porter to San Jose State, and Jeremy Fitzpatrick to Memphis. I'm not going to miss Fitzpatrick. He was kind of a guy I was just seeing if we could get him maybe for a little more depth. So our ranking increased to 104th, but that didn't really, A number of these 1-stars, by the way, are also junior college guys, so they do come in a bit higher rated than your typical 1-stars. Junior college guys do come in a bit higher rated, and they do progress a little quicker because they're shorter careers and because they're coming out of a college system already. So there you go. You can take a look at those top teams in that class in the recruiting battles. Now to the training results, and yes, this is a lot more in-depth than my past off-season videos. I want to show pretty much everything because I know people do like to see this stuff, and I don't want to skip out on too much here, but see how these players have progressed. And Josh Silva increased 3 points like pretty much everybody else on accuracy, except Colin McElroy +5. So there you go. I really don't know what to do with the quarterback situation because the two guys below McCarley and McElroy, I'm going to say McElroy because I don't want to say McElroy, both have really good passing ratings, and they're both quite capable, I believe, if I saw correctly, they're both capable as kind of mobile quarterbacks as well. Not quite Josh Silva level, but they do have better accuracy. So it's going to be interesting. We might, I think what we're going to do, and you'll see later, is we might be looking at a change at quarterback this year. Maybe allow Josh a little more time to grow into his junior season, because David Washington will be graduating as well as at least one of the other two. But you know, it might be a different quarterback situation this year, guys. I know some of you will like that because there have been question marks about Josh Silva. I know a number of you have been quite vocal about him not being the guy to be the quarterback for this team, and I do disagree, but at the same time I do see what you're saying. I don't disregard that. Nobody increased at right tackle because we lost everybody at right tackle, and the guys coming out of that position are freshmen, so obviously they couldn't progress over the season because they weren't a part of our system. But there you go. Nice improvements at defensive tackle there. Guys getting up there. TJ Ricks. Oh, fudge. I almost knocked my microphone off because I was getting excited. TJ Armstrong. He's been sitting down all low on the depth chart. He's like got no playing time. TJ Armstrong is going to be the starting middle linebacker, though. Kevon Walker. Look at Justin Whittle. 4 points to a 79 overall. Again, I don't want to put all the stock into overall ratings, but you know, there you go. Rob Thompson. I like our defensive backfield this year. I think, especially at cornerback, I know it doesn't look like the most impressive thing ever, but it's really solid across the board. Marcus Massey jumps 5 points. It's going to be a good year, I think. Flante Misher, senior. Pretty much going to be the last year of guys from the original Old Dominion team, and that's going to start being all recruited players. Now we have to cut people. We have to cut 4 guys to meet the roster requirements. I cut this right guard who was, I believe, a walk-on. The walk-ons generally aren't the greatest. They come in really low rated. That depends. You can usually quite clearly see who's a walk-on there, but I considered cutting McFadden, and I did. I said, you know what, this guy's not going to contribute. He's very low. And I cut C.J. Bradshaw because we have enough. C.J. Bradshaw was going to be a senior anyway, and he was probably not going to get much playing time. Wasn't very well rated, and we have enough depth at halfback anyway. I didn't need 5. So that's that. Now we can move on to the preseason of year 4, the 2016 college football season here. Here's our recruiting needs. We need a quarterback, a halfback, and the game says a couple receivers, but we're losing 5 receivers. I'm going to recruit more than 2 receivers, okay? We really don't have too many needs per se on defense. Look at how young we are on defense. Very young. We lost so many players. Only 3 seniors make up this defensive unit. Could be a good thing when you're talking about the future because a lot of these guys will be returning next year. Could be a bad thing because there's not a lot of experience. Some guys could be lower rated. Here's our recruiting. We're looking at some quarterbacks here. Greg Jones, a 4-star out of New Jersey. And he looks to be quite interesting. A good combination of running and throwing. Adam Norton, a 3-star out of Leesburg, Virginia. So an in-state recruit, a guy we can use that proximity to home bonus and say, dude, you're not that far away from us. And Jake Hemphill, Vernon, Texas, 6'3", 213 pounds. Looks to be a pretty solid prospect as well. So these will be guys that will be coming in behind Josh Silva. These will be guys that will be part of the future. If you didn't see Reynaldo Wheeler, 6'6" wide receiver. Currently looking at 5. May add a few more receivers to the board as well, because obviously there's no guarantees that I'm going to get all of these guys. I would like that, but you know, there are other schools vying for their attention. Some of you probably want to see Old Dominion's ratings for recruiting now. We've progressed a little bit. A in coach prestige, B- in television exposure. Stadium atmosphere is getting better. Stability, you know, the longer I stay at this program, the better that rating's going to get. And I'm not going to be leaving. This is an Old Dominion dynasty, not a coaching dynasty. Made that very clear. That's the difference in this dynasty than a coaching dynasty. If I was doing a coaching one, then I'd be looking for other jobs, probably. But I'm not. let's redshirt some players. Nobody redshirt at quarterback or halfback, or fullback really. I'm going to do Nick Carroll at wide receiver because it'll allow him to not waste a year of eligibility just sitting around and probably making 5 catches, not really getting much playing time. So he'll develop and not lose a year of eligibility. And that's pretty fantastic if you ask me. Pretty fantastic. We have pretty good depth at our offensive line positions. But I might be moving some guys around in the offensive line because look at the right tackle. We have 2 freshmen, not all that well rated. And I might be moving a couple backups from other offensive line positions to start at that position based on how I look at their ratings, obviously, and see if they're capable of handling a tackle position there. See here. Again, same with linebacker because mainly with right outside linebacker, it's going to be an interesting year. I redshirted Corey Morgan at middle linebacker. I don't know if he's going to stay around necessarily. I might end up cutting him next year or something if we get somebody better coming in at that position, but there's that. And John Mills. I took a long look at John Mills. Do I want to redshirt him? I don't know if I want to redshirt him. Again, it's the cornerback position. A lot of competition there. Jeff Robinson, 6'5", we'll leave him in as a backup strong safety. Considered redshirting Nick Reed because Tommy Patrick could just take all the kicking duties and kicking, punting, but we're just going to leave it, although probably Tommy Patrick will still end up being the kicker. He'll be both kicker and punter because Nick Reed needs some time. I don't know that he's really going to be a guy that will lean on too much. So he really lacks a lot of kicking power. Alright, so the quarterback decision. The problem with David Washington is he doesn't come off that accurate to me and he lacks strength in his throws. I haven't been impressed when I've used David throwing the ball, and the reason his overall rating is as high as it is because he has a 99 awareness rating. And awareness, as far as I know, doesn't really impact human-controlled players. Like, if I'm controlling him, awareness isn't really a thing. For instance, if a cornerback I'm not controlling is playing, awareness is going to come into play. But if I'm controlling him, the awareness is on me. I'm the one being aware of the situation, unless the awareness controls other factors that I'm not aware of. So, it's not always too clear as to what some of these ratings really dictate or control. And I wish EA would do a little more explaining on what every rating directly impacts in the game so I know. I have an idea of what awareness affects, but not exactly everything in the game. So it's a little bit, another thing that's a little bit arbitrary. But I put Ellison and Privet as the top 2 receivers. Philip Dixons is going to be a number 3, a slot receiver, because of his speed. Ellison and Privet are more possession type receivers. Dickens is going to be a guy we put in the slot. He gets matched up with maybe a linebacker, a mismatch. He burns that guy, whatever. So there's that. Connor Martin, obviously the starting tight end. It's his final year, guys. It's his final year, so we're gonna have to say a good goodbye to him. Farewell tour for Connor Martin this season. How about that? And here's me rearranging the depth chart for the offensive line, which is always the most wonky part of the depth chart, because it likes sticking tight ends in the backup spots for these positions, which really doesn't make much sense. I mean, I understand the game's logic behind it, but again, another thing that just doesn't really make sense. Whew, alright. Yeah, this is definitely a longer off-season, preseason video, but I know people do want to see this. If you don't, you can skip around. You're probably already doing that, so it's up to you guys what you want to see and what you don't, but including it is better than not including it because then people can see what they want to. And yeah, just rearranging the depth chart here, you can see how it's all going down. I pretty much had it all written down and organized how I wanted it to, but did need to make a few changes because the default depth chart was quite wonky. So We're about ready to start year 4, guys. Year 4 is on our way. On its way, but yes, you did see Josh Silva is going to be the tentative starter, but it's not guaranteed that he will be all-time starter. Not guaranteed at all. There are guys behind him that are very capable and can make a difference if he's not getting the job done. So it will be an interesting season. I think, though, when we head into year 3, that will, I should say, Josh Silva's junior season, his 3rd year as a player, he will probably then be really the outright starter, unless we get a really big-time recruit. But Justin Weddle, Jack Tacho, Rob Thompson, look, no seniors in this cornerback unit here. Weddle's a sophomore. Donald Simmons is a redshirt sophomore. So, this is a really good chance for this unit to become one of the best in the conference, maybe if not the country by the end of next season. Maybe not this season. I won't say they're going to be one of the best in the country this season, but maybe next season. I don't have the 90 overall guys here, but you don't necessarily need that. Guy doesn't have to be, a 90 overall, 99 to be a great player. We've seen that already. Travis Gonzalez played, I think Travis Gonzalez played beyond his ratings. He was one of those guys who just played better than the game said he was. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes guys play worse than their ratings. It's just like real life. You don't always play up to expectations, or sometimes you play above. Alright, but enough about that. I think I've spewed on enough about that stuff. We'll bring back Donald Simmons as a returner. Back-to-back years having the returner of the year. Pretty fantastic. Pretty fantastic. Here it is, the schedule. I've scheduled a neutral site game with Michigan at Soldier Field in Chicago to open the season. I know you guys wanted to see a neutral site game, so I'm doing that this season. Soldier Field against Michigan. It's not going to be an easy game, guys, I tell you what. Then at Virginia, home against Temple. First conference game is at Western Kentucky. Then we go to the Blue Turf at Boise State. On the road to Tulsa. Then we come back home against North Texas. Then it's a bye week. We have home games against Florida International and Marshall before going on the road to Florida Atlantic, home against Middle Tennessee, and finally at UAB. And hopefully we return to the Conference USA Championship. Hopefully. Take a look at the preseason polls. And this is the full preseason outlook here. So the 1 through 126 or whatever the number is. In the top 10, Alabama, Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Stanford, Texas. The defending national champion, Georgia Tech, Yellow Jackets are ranked 8th. Interesting. Virginia Tech and Miami round out the top 10 there. We'll take a look at the coaches poll in a second. That'll be more the official top 25. But I wanted to see where Old Dominion stacked up, and we are 55th, so we're in the top half of the country. Halfway would be like 63, so we qualify for being just in the top half, but top 10 coaches poll, no different than what we were just looking at. Iowa 11, Oklahoma 12, Penn State 14, West Virginia 18, interesting. Tennessee 22, lots of ACC in there. Or I mean SEC, I don't know what I was talking about. SEC, no surprise. Not at all. Conference outlook. And we are projected to win the East this year. Projected to repeat as East Division champions and make it back to the Conference USA title game. Should be interesting. Last season, I made a goal. Before the season started to win the conference championship, and we accomplished said goal. Now I want to win the Conference USA championship and win a bowl game, and dare I say, maybe even make a run at a top 20 ranking. Get inside the top 20. That's not going to be easy at all. That's probably a really stretch You know, we're really stretching for that goal because it's going to be difficult. But that's why we set goals. We try to get them. And look at this. Preseason All-American. On the first team, All-American team, it's David Dixon. Yeah, I said the word team like 5 times there, but... Well, he made it. He made the preseason All-American team in his sophomore season. And both David Dixon and Josh Silva were on the freshman All-American teams at the end of last season. That was part of the footage that I lost. So you guys didn't get to see that. But they both were a part of the NCAA freshman All-American team. That include the nation's best freshmen, obviously. They both did a great job. Could have been better, obviously, but both did a great job. Obviously, Dixon is on the first team all-conference. No surprise there. But we didn't have too many other guys make an appearance in this. Marcus Massey at safety and Donald Simmons as a returner, but nobody else really made much of an appearance on these All-America teams. Harvey Taylor, second team.
And he made quite an impression as a backup halfback. So there's that. And I wanted to look at one more thing. Toughest places to play. Just to see where some of these teams stacked up. I didn't really look at that too close. I wanted to see where Old Dominion stacked up here after a few seasons into the action. And we ranked 62nd. Have won 4 home games in a row, guys. So that's it. Showed the instant classics we've had over the past 3 seasons. But that's it. That's all we have for the offseason, the preseason, and now we're going ahead to year 4. We'll be looking more in depth at some of our recruits as we go forward in year 4. Till then, I will see you guys for the first game at Soldier Field against Michigan.